welcome back. So we have a very important topic and panel coming up on diversity and inclusion and its impact on emerging technologies. I think this is something that we all really need to be looking at. So we have with us Kavya Pearlman of XR Safety Initiative, April Boyd Nerona, also from XR Safety Initiative, Deirdre Diamond from Secure Diversity, Lawrence Wagner from Spark Mindset, Maria Tamellini from Gamer Safer, and of course, Ross Newman, also from XR Safety Initiative.
Thank you so much. Human biases kill human beings. Human biases cause genocide. Human biases cause wars. This panel is not for the lighthearted. We don't have to really look far. In fact, pick up any news outlet lately. Biases are everywhere. These biases are now making its way into our emerging technologies and increasing risks to human lives. On the other hand, emerging technologies are effectively shaping our present and our future into something new, something profound. However, gender gap and minority exclusion prevails in the tech industry. In January 2020, a diverse group of people, top-level experts in the cybersecurity domain and the XR industry, decided to join hands in a shared effort to bring diversity and inclusion into the upcoming era, and the one that is being shaped by the emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence, extended reality. The immersive new worlds we are building are replica of our existing society, and it is very, very clear when we look to the phenomena like race and gender and all these gender biases in AI or in other self-representation of different kind of avatars, and issues like harassment in social VR are already creeping in. Today's panel includes leaders from various leading diversity and cybersecurity focused organizations. So in the next 35 to 40 minutes, we're making an attempt to shed some light on these issues and potentially solve some of these challenges. We're building extended realities that people with diverse backgrounds will live in. So our current realities should reflect that. With that said, let me go right over to our panel, this amazing group of expert panels that I've had the honor to work alongside in past few months. Starting from the top, Maria, take it away.
Hi, Kavya, thanks for the intro. So my name is Maria Tamellini. I'm co-founder and CEO of Gamer Safer. And our vision is to eradicate sexual abuse and minimize all the risks associated to online interactions and the fraud scenarios in general. Safety and human-centered design are the core of our technology. That's why I'm super happy to be part of the coalition and the XR Safety Initiative. In a nutshell, what we do at Gamer Safer, we provide a digital gaming ID, and using computer vision and AI, we authenticate and verify users before they join the game. And with that, we help those games protect their users and communities. I am a gamer and a parent of two passionate gamers, and I am also a Latina. I'm part of the board of Latinas in Tech, so accessibility, inclusion, diversity are topics that are really close to my heart and to my lived experience and part of my mission in general. So happy to be here.
Thank you, Maria. Over to you, Ross.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ross Newman. I'm currently working on my PhD at the University of North Texas. I'm doing research in the Human Machine Intelligence and Language Technologies Lab under the guidance of Dr. Rodney Nielsen, and I work with XRSI as their global AI advisor. My current research interests are in computer vision, neural network design, and more specifically explainable neural networks, which I believe will be a very important step forward in enabling us to know how our AI are making decisions so that we can make sure that the AI that we're working on are not falling for the same biases that humans are prone to.
Thank you, Ross. And Lawrence.
Hello, I'm Lawrence Wagner with Spark Mindset. I'm the CEO and founder of Spark Mindset. And our overall vision is to break the cycle of poverty in low-income communities, and we do that by preparing middle and high school students for cybersecurity. We know that there is lack of diversity in cybersecurity. There is only 26% minorities in cybersecurity, with 14% of those being women. And so we want to empower minorities and women at a younger age, so they will actually have the confidence that they can go into cybersecurity. And we know that providing a safe space for them, providing them with the confidence, so we can have a diverse pipeline that is in cybersecurity. And then that way, you will see more women, you'll see more people of color, you'll see more Latinas in this space, because they started at a young age, and we've taken the time to build their self-confidence to be able to go into this field.
Wonderful. Thank you, Lawrence. And Deidre.
Yes. Hi, everybody. Deidre Diamond. I'm the founder of CyberSN.com, as well as the founder of Secure Diversity. I'm also the CEO of both organizations. CyberSN is changing the game in job searching. We all know how horrible it is. Searching and matching to jobs is a broken system today. We've changed that. Secure Diversity is all about bringing women and minorities into cybersecurity in many different ways. And what I've encountered over the years of my experience is that emotional intelligence is key to job satisfaction, as well from management, as well as EQ of our own individual selves, as well as it's the key to inclusion. Meaning, for so long, organizations have called me to solve diversity job statistics for them. And what I end up finding myself doing is being in the conversation of words and behaviors that the organization is going to utilize so that they can have inclusive environments. Inclusive environments create diverse environments. It's not the other way around. And so I do a lot of coaching on what are the words and the behaviors of humans that need to be owned as a skill, such that diversity can happen because inclusion environments exist. And that's why I'm here today, is to join in bringing that to XR and to the world.
Thank you, Deidre. And finally, April.
Yes. Hello, everyone. To add to everyone else's, my lens of expertise encompasses 3 areas, whereas a parent of 3 that are all in aspiring youth and adults in the emerging trends of cybersecurity, environmental engineering, and drone piloting. A third principle is as a professor of health information management, CIS, and cybersecurity. And third, and I say the best part of it, is as a principal advocate, as a STEM consultant for engaging persons in emerging trends, board member of XRSI and global D&I advisor, as well as the lead of the CyberXR Coalition.
Thank you, April. And about me, Kavya Pearlman. I'm your host today, and I'm also the CEO and founder of XR Safety Initiative, as well as CyberXR Coalition, which you see these wonderful subject matter experts of their own domain. They are all part of CyberXR domain, and there are many more volunteers and people that are with me. So I have had the privilege of working alongside these people. Prior to XR Safety Initiative, I was the head of security for, most of you may have heard of, the oldest existing virtual world, Second Life. So Linden Lab, which also had its virtual reality platform called Sensar. So I've had the privilege to protect 2 virtual economies in my time at Linden Lab. Before that, I was dealing with some major problems with Facebook. 2016 election time, I was doing third-party security for Facebook. So all of these experiences kind of caused me and compelled me to now bring together a vision and a mission to help build safe and inclusive virtual immersive environments and digital ecosystems, because we are literally moving into this extended reality. So we have to consider all these biases, all these issues, and we have to mitigate them. Before we go further, I want to point out this African proverb. There is a saying, a lion's story will never be told if the hunter is the one to tell. So with that, I want to point to why CyberXR Coalition, and what is CyberXR Coalition? To do that, who better than the woman who has been leading the coalition alongside me, guiding all of us to a strategic, solution-driven mission, CyberXR Coalition lead, April Boyd-Nerona. April.
Thank you, Kavya. Yes, I'm so proud to be here amidst all of our other esteemed panelists and members of the CyberXR Coalition. So as you mentioned earlier, we launched in early 2020 under the umbrella of the XR Safety Initiative, XRSI. And the catalyst for the coalition was a need for a global, yet unified and collaborative D&I entity within the CyberXR, the cybersecurity and XR ecosystem, more importantly with a vision to help build the safe and inclusive digital experiences. Now, our mission is to lead this necessary narrative, to be the voice, to actively address social and technical biases within emerging technologies through measures such as what we're doing today, being on panels, and equally importantly, publishing timely content. So primarily, the coalition embodies two things: a global collective of XRSI and about 10 other D&I-focused cybersecurity and XR organizations, and second, to be a diverse representation, literally, as you can see in our collage of our members.
Yeah, I'm so proud of that image.
It speaks volumes, but as we know, now's the part that we've been waiting for. We're so excited. A bit of the background is, while the world was, or still is, really, coping with the COVID-19, we, the coalition, were at the table addressing the urgency of a fundamental baseline for immersive technology standards for accessibility, ethics, inclusion, and safety, as you can see on the screen. So I know inquiring minds are asking, what will you find in these standards that the coalition as a whole has designed? I'm glad you asked. So let's start with accessibility. It must first and foremost be built on the premise of a culture of care, where everyone is able to participate as they are. Next, we focused on ethics and awareness. And in our standards, we've defined a digital ethics to help all stakeholders face the inevitable challenges that we all know lie ahead in emerging digital technologies. Now, third, when it comes to inclusion, we simply cannot leave anyone behind. So in doing this, our standards encourage stakeholders to proactively engage in impactful, intentional, and meaningful measures. And last but certainly not least is safety and trust. Now, though there is no single recipe for building safety and trust, we believe that a particular mindset can be established to promote trust and safety from the ground up. This then in turn will ultimately define the success of immersive technologies. So I encourage you to visit us at cyberxr.org to access our standards and learn how to join us in our continued efforts.
Thank you for that amazing introduction and the incredible launch of these standards. I dreamed about this day, April, and here we are.
Right.
collectively, I mean, it would have been amazing to see each other in person, but this is just as profound, just as good. I've got goosebumps. And as we talk about safety in the end, which, you know, most of you know, cybersecurity is my first love, and it's something that I'm really, really, it's close to my heart, and inclusion, accessibility, all of this. But there is a big part of safety that we as a coalition thought that has to be carved out and specifically addressed, which is child safety. And for that, who better than subject matter experts, COO of Gamer Safer, the company that's developing technologies to address just that. So in the standard, there is a dedicated section. And Maria, I'm going to let you do the talking about child safety. Why do you think it's important, and what kind of stuff that people can anticipate in these standards? And what are you guys doing at Gamer Safer that's going to help the XR domain?
Yeah, so I think the time is perfect to discuss child safety. If there is one thing that this global pandemic is showing us, is that children that are super interested in technology, they're tech savvy, and their online activities are on the rise. I work with safety. I am a gamer. I have a lot of talks about everything, and it's still hard for me to manage. So I think it's such an important topic, and in the standards, we try to address the challenge we have in that area. One of the things that I think we must recognize, and we don't need a lot of research to do it, is like children are joining experiences that were not necessarily designed for them. And they're doing that many times without supervision and getting exposed to a wide range of challenges. They can access content that is not appropriate for them. They can be victims of bulliers, scammers, predators, fraudsters, groomers, and the list goes on and on. So what we try to do in the standards was bring our role as an industry, because our platforms shouldn't be used as tools to facilitate those risks. So with a prevention mindset, with prevention-oriented strategies, what we try to highlight is that not only this is what we need to do right now, but it's perfectly possible to do it. So we listed, I think, 9 or 10 safety measures and best practice to, you know, show that it's possible, and companies, based on the risks they can map in their platforms, they can choose what the measures they can deploy in order to prevent those incidents in their platforms. And it's such an important thing for us, because one thing that April was saying before, we must embrace everybody as they are in our platforms. And with children, they're totally vulnerable. They don't have maturity to choose. So we must be prepared to embrace them as they are in our platform, or make sure we have mechanisms to prevent them from joining experiences that were not designed for them. So I think that's the vision that I try to help the coalition in the child safety standards. And as for Gamer Safer, we tackle a wide range of challenges, not only child safety, but an age-appropriate strategy is one of the common needs that we're feeling from our customers. And I'm happy to talk more with everybody. I think Kavya will share our contacts.
Absolutely.
I'm happy
Absolutely.
to discuss more about it. So I'm excited for you to read what we have. And I'm excited that's totally feasible. A lot of companies can look the measures, see the risks, and like do more to protect the most vulnerable and create like safer spaces for children.
Thank you, Maria. I totally appreciate it. Such an amazing job. And in fact, Maria directly worked with XRSI's GDPR UK advisor, who works directly with the UK regulators, tackling exactly some of these issues. So we are really taking these things global. And now I just want to bring in, and I want to be cognizant of time. We've got 10 minutes to go. We want to keep 5 minutes for question and answer. But quickly, Lawrence, what are you doing over at Spark Mindset? And I definitely want you to point out the camp that we are putting together. So just quickly, so I could just, go over to Ross. He has some pointers for us. Go ahead. And you're muted.
With Spark Mindset, we are putting on a camp for middle and high school students that prepares them for cybersecurity. We is a very interactive camp that gets them involved, learn them different things around cybersecurity ethics, awareness, cybersecurity roles that's in the industry and roles that they can take on, networking, OSI models. And we do this in fun and engaging ways. In the future, we will continue to use our virtual reality platform where kids can see concepts of cybersecurity in fun and exciting ways. We're also transforming some of our VR stuff to augmented reality. So we're excited about that. We have a camp launching this June. It's our first remote camp teaching cybersecurity for middle and high school students. And so we're excited to be launching that on June 1st. And those are some of the things that Spark Mindset is really doing. But I do want to make a caveat to what Maria was saying. As kids were playing our games in our virtual reality, we used the Oculus Go. Kids had access to some material that they weren't supposed to because we couldn't do parental controls on the Oculus Go. And so where the Oculus Go says they have these ratings that says all things are safe, my kids were 16, they were watching things that they weren't supposed to. And so we need to really tighten on this child safety and what they can get involved and what they can see on these virtual reality platforms that they will be using in the future.
Thank you, Lawrence, for pointing that out. And, since you've brought up this issue, I've been vocal about it and will continue to be vocal wherever the opportunity presents until we solve these issues one by one. With that, Deidre, I don't want to skip you over. You contributed a large portion of these standards, but that's going into phase 2 and will be added. But just, real quickly, what could we look forward to as these standards evolve and we bring in your portions and things that you've been working on? So we could go over to Ross for just a quick pointer.
Yeah, I think that what we can look forward to is one of the most challenging things that humans are dealing with today is putting rules around words and behaviors. And it is a super challenge. It's a lot of litigious behavior around these concepts. We are dealing with it in life in general as to what is the accountability to words. Kavya, you said wars and lots of, yucky things happen between humans. And it all is because of words, whether they're verbal or digital, and then the behaviors that come from the words or the emotions that are associated with the words. And so we're gonna put a lasso around that, and it is no easy task. It has been something that has been brewing inside of me for years and years in terms of making it a standard. It is something I teach, and I'm out at all kinds of cybersecurity conferences teaching, and yet now it's time to put rules. So we will come from a kind place, and yet we do need to have rules.
Great, thank you for that, Deidre. Lots to look forward to as we continue to develop and evolve these standards. Currently, they sit in the request for comments period for about a month, so your comments are welcome, and we'll incorporate that and then evolve that into phase 2. But with that, I do want to go over to Ross. Hey, Ross, so what exactly, you've shared this whole example with me. Just walk us through quickly as to why we should be concerned about human biases in AI.
Yeah, so as AI and machine learning models are becoming more common and more pervasive in the decision-making processes that we're having today, it's important to know the common phrase garbage in, garbage out. The data that we create, in this example, it's 108 years of written language in books and stories and articles, and the pervasiveness of gendered language where women are beautiful and sexy, but men are rational and brave. It's important to keep track of and build these systems with these biases in mind, so that the biases that exist in humans that we commonly see every day are not found in our new systems, because these decision-making processes can be the difference between you getting a loan or getting denied a loan or getting banned from a service or being allowed on the service. So I know we're running out of time, so I'll try to keep it short.
Yeah, thank you, Ross. So in the end, I just want to wrap it up with just one thing that we hold close to our heart. It's a statement that really defines us. It's really easy to look away, but to make good choices, we have to understand the impact. If we turn away, the choices still get made, but they just don't get made by the people who care or who understand. We are the people who care. We are the ones who understand how these choices should be made. We are the Cyber XR Coalition. And before we go into Q&A, I just want to give a shout out to all of these organizations: OpenAR Cloud, Gamer Safer, Women in Cybersecurity, Secure Diversity, Spark Mindset, Mookie International, Women in Immersive Technology EU, recently joined Equal Entry, Open Web Application Security Project, InfoSec Girls. They've collectively come together to bring these standards to life. And with that, let's take any questions that we may have. And here's some information for the panelists. You are welcome to follow us. And
hi, everyone.
questions.
Hi, Kavya. How are you? Nice to see you.
Nice
This
to
was
see you as well.
really informative. We do have a question for the panel. It says, how or what can the industry do to be more accessible for low-income enthusiasts? Mobile proposes a great gateway, but what are some of the other opportunities?
Lawrence, you want to field that?
Yes, so one of the opportunities is because of COVID, more kids are getting laptops, they're getting internet access, they're getting Chromebooks. And so with that additional information, it's up to us as industry professionals to provide them with information that is accessible, low priced, so they can actually afford it, so they can actually be able to have opportunities in these fields.
Yeah, and I would add to that, awareness plays a huge role, which we are contributing to, and everyone should. So yeah, back to you, Amy. Did you have any other questions?
And Ross, you opened and you sort of touched on the end something that I think is really it's something we need at. So how can we avoid being biased into it? What are some of the standards that need to be put in place to ensure that that doesn't happen? You didn't have a lot of time to talk about it, and I think it's a big topic, and we do have a few minutes. So
yeah, so I think it's important that when we start from the ground up, when you're building this system, you have to be aware of these biases that can happen. There's been some good research about creating systems out of Stanford that automatically detect these biases. Liu et al. With Dr. Fei Li came out with a bias-resistant neural network that was automatically able to ignore those correlative factors in skin tone in facial recognition systems. So I think there's a lot of good research to be done in creating these systems that automatically remove those, but also when you're generating your data sets that you're doing, you need to make sure that human biases aren't allowed in. You got to make sure your data sets are clean and free of the biases that we are aware of. So part of that's educating the people who are creating these systems on what can go wrong.
Yeah.
And just the other day, Ross.
Sorry. Oh, well, and I applaud all of you on these standards, which I'd love to give you a little more time. There is an interesting question here, and I will try and paraphrase it at the end. But it says, "Is the technologist's goal to make post-racial and post-gender virtual worlds future migration place, or to create best in virtual world and migrate those into our offline worlds?" And so, is this a two-way street, and how do we really start to build best practices in all of these worlds?
Yeah, I think we're all committed to proving it here in XR, bringing it, to XR, and then it expands over any and all platforms. It's human interaction, human behavior, how we interact with each other. It is not inclusive only to XR platforms.
Yeah, it's definitely a two-way street from what it looks like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hope so. I think it's an opportunity. So what have been some of the challenges you've seen? Kavya, you've lived in these virtual worlds for such a long time, and experienced some of the behaviors that were quite acceptable in the early days, coming sort of from this gaming community and this, we're sort of lighthearted, deriding of one another, into actually even sort of very aggressive behaviors, but it seemed like it was tolerated for a very long time. How do you see us really being able to shift that construct? Because in an avatar, you can be anyone, you can present yourself in any way. So what are some of the ways that you see us being, able to evolve these behaviors?
Right. Thank you for that question. And it's true. I've had to endure harassment, first-person harassment, and that basically triggered a lot of issues from my past, because some of my past actually had, I had a bit of an abusive past as a child. So all of these things had a very, profound psychological impact on me. So needless to say, these things have to be mitigated. The question is, though, when do you mitigate them, and how do you actually introduce these controls? So one of the things that any XR company should keep in mind: don't introduce these controls too early. If you got 40 people and that's all your platform, and all you're going after is the security and risk and all these harassment controls, you'd probably be known for it. Yes, you would definitely stifle innovation somewhere. So the solutions that we propose are very pragmatic from the point of view of it should enable growth and not stifle it. And then it also depends on the platform. Like platforms like VRChat, they thrive sometimes on trolling and all kinds of troll videos and whatnot. It gives them growth. So it really depends on what kind of reputation do you really want to have as you're building. And right now, what we see as the mass adoption is taking place, we see a little bit of runway. So those decisions, how and when they should be made and what kind of controls should be introduced, is all of these questions are being addressed by the coalition and all these subject matter experts. So lots to look forward to, because these are very granular responses, and we need a whole another session for that.
But you started the discussion. Oh, yes, please go.
Yeah, so one thing that we are encouraging the industry to think more of is thinking before the fact. So what can you do before a user joins a platform that can prevent those interactions? So what kind of understanding, what kind of risk measures you can put in place to prevent those interactions from happening? So of course, in the child safety part, there are many measures, but I believe some of them are universal. It can be used for basically every user. So once we switch our conversations from in-gaming mitigations, from preventing the damage interactions from happening, I think we can minimize for sure many of the problems.
Yeah. And I'm going to jump in, and also beginning to teach kids ethics at a much young, like once they begin to start playing these platforms, once they start going into VR, once they start getting on online, as they need to know how to behave online, how to treat their fellow gamers, how to talk to girls, how to talk to people of color as they see them online. So we need to begin to start teaching them, like we do it in the middle school, but actually in elementary, they need to begin to learn these ethics around engagement online.
Yeah, definitely.
That's
Digital
a great
citizen
point.
Component, yeah, of what we're proposing here.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Lawrence, because there's an immediate need, but I think it's also generational. And I think you're right. I think starting as early as possible gives us a chance to ingrain these just better behaviors and general respect, in real life and in these virtual environments. So we have another question from the audience on the inclusion side. Can you please elaborate a bit more on what is being done for people with disabilities so that XR is more accessible to them?
And I really wish that Thomas Logan was also here to speak to us about it. He's one of those super experts, passionate just as I am for trust and safety about accessibility. So himself and OpenER Cloud's director of communication and many of the volunteers have put together what we call is the top 10 requirements for accessibility by CyberXR. This is like a cheat sheet that, you know, right now you can go on to cyberxr.org and sort of download this sort of cheat sheet and hand it over to your developers to prioritize those top 10 things. Because there's incredible organizations, W3C, MIT, and many others that are putting standards out there. But what's happening is people are overwhelmed and they don't understand how should they actually act. So these are solutions that, you know, when we talk about top 10, it should be everyone. In fact, I'm going to make it a point that I understand those top 10. Every CEO should understand those top 10. Every developer should understand those top 10. It should be incorporated in our fabric, and that's when we will achieve, you know, when we have this trust, safety, and accessibility, we call it like the triad, and that's when we'll be able to achieve a human-centric design, which is absolutely essential when we're talking about extending reality.
That's great. And thank you, Deb Myers actually just also added that there's another resource called XR Access. So I encourage you to go and look that up as well. So we have another question. Do you see XR standards mirroring systems like ESRB with a range of content levels and clear content warning? And I'm guessing that's in, you know, for both experience, standalone experiences, but I wonder if there might even be, you know, virtual rooms that will have this sort of rating system. What are your thoughts on that?
And if I may actually take that, because I actually happened to meet with a couple of these organizations last year, right at AWE, where they pointed out at research that they're conducting to label these standards, kind of like in an MPAA style, where you have an API that sort of sorts through these things, which I've also had the honor to work back at Facebook. So we absolutely need that. Lawrence earlier hinted that, you know, we need some kind of a parental control for children, but we definitely need these type of ratings for specifically for experiences, because what's happening lately, and this is common, you go into an XR experience and you just don't know what to expect. And personally for me, somebody had actually once put me in a child experience and I was a toddler and I freaked out. A lot of the other people may not be comfortable with scary experiences. What about even if it's a painting, nudity, and if I'm just showing a friend, maybe I'm uncomfortable with that. So, you know, all these violence, nudity, scary things, like these could be really deep psychological triggers for somebody. And then another thing that we need to care about is something that we point out, it's a novel thing that has not been talked about, is a spectator culture. So what happens when you're in VR? What is rest of the room doing? Some people actually grope others and make videos about it. So there are a lot of these novel things that we have discovered and kind of put together in these standards, and will continue to do so.
Yeah, and I think that comes down to the levels of control then that need to evolve as these virtual environments grow, so that those, you know, that the people in those environments have the ability to mitigate as much as possible within those applications, because you cannot unsee or unfeel something that you've experienced in VR. So I'd love to just wrap up with some final thoughts. And again, you know, Kavya, you mentioned that top 10 list, but any other of you, you know, just some recommendations for things that you know, companies and CEOs and developers can look at today without having to read volumes and volumes. That can be really good, almost cheat sheets for, you know, how to be smart and approach these issues.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And honestly, look at those standards, but there is going to be different cheat sheet type downloadable nuggets. One of the big ones that I'm a big fan of and had the privilege to work on is the trust and safety. So here is the shift that I'm recommending and all of the coalition is recommending. Thus far, we have talked about privacy, cybersecurity, security, ethics, or ethical dilemma. What I recommend to every CEO, every XR enterprise person, everybody that is an XR stakeholder, let's zoom out and talk about trust and safety. Let's make security and privacy and ethics all a part of it. So what we need to achieve is trust and safety using a framework, which you can, sort of download in a cheat sheet form. Think of it like a filter, and then you can put those risks in front of your platform parallel to it. Do I need to combat misinformation if I'm an indie dev? Not really. But should I combat that if I'm Oculus? You better do it, because those risks are coming for you. So that's a kind of a solution-driven, mechanism that are embedded in it. April, anything that you think that we should point out? Just any last thoughts?
Right, and as I worked on the ethics and awareness portion, is that when we enter these open environments, because they're open, and as we enter into the summer and more kids and more people are adopting and adapting to this, we have to make sure that we're not leaving anyone behind. We have to make sure that equally important that we are all represented when we get there. One thing that I experience when I'm in VR is that I look around and make sure that am I the only one, and you all know what I mean when I'm referring to that. And that speaks volumes. When you first enter a room or when you first enter an experience, and this could be someone that's a novice or even an experienced person. So when we first enter the realm, what do we see? And most likely, if we don't see others that represent or look like us, are we really being inclusive? And is it really diverse? Would be one of the first few questions that I ask as I enter an open world.
Yeah. Thank you, April. And then you also pointed out that diverse avatars are important. We actually reviewed a few platforms that still till date only have blue-eyed, blonde hair avatar. I mean, I'm not really demanding a hijab right this minute, but come on, let's represent some flavors and colors of reality when we put together these avatars. And what about the genders? Like, why do I have to choose gender as a default avatar? So these are like basic things that, a line in the sand. You are a CEO. You can choose these things. You can make better choices.
And these little things make all the difference.
This has been such a great panel, so informative. I wish we had some more time. We are going to take a break now until 10:30, so grab a snack, take the dog for a walk, hug your kids, whatever you're doing now. But do come back and join us at 10:30 Pacific time. We have another great talk for you on 5G for spatial computing. And thank you so much, panel. Fantastic job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.